Hey guys, it's been a while. Just a little quick side note, no massive intro, whatever. Um, will just mainly focused on like Reddit stories and all that, blah blah. So if I like make any grammatical or errors or whatever, blah blah blah, just know this is how like I'm generally speaking actually talk. So yeah. Anyways, let's just get to it. Don't Google yourself horror story. Don't Google yourself. Why? Because you may not like what you find. One day I was bored and decided to search my own name on Google. I have quite a rare name, so I didn't expect to find many results. Imagine how surprised I was when I came across a website that had my full name on the domain. When I clicked the link, it brought me to a message board. I looked at the profile of the website owner and found out that the person was the same age as me and had the same hobbies and interests. There weren't any posts on the message board, but I was intrigued, so I saved it in my favorites. It was about a month later when I went back to the website. This time it had more content. There were some diary entries, mostly random things like the weather was nice today or I'm bored in work, things of that nature. However, as time went on, I began to notice more and more coincidences. The person lived in the same city as I did. It struck me as rather strange that two people with the exact same name, same rare name, would be living in the same city at the same time. At one point, I noticed that the contents of the diary were quite similar to my own life. One day, I went to a baseball game, and when I checked the website that evening, I found that the owner of the site had gone to the same ball game. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, tens of thousands of people in the city supported the same baseball team. It began to seem like much more than a simple coincidence. Whenever I checked the website, I would notice little biographical details that seemed too close for comfort. For example, the owner mentioned the pet dog, and the dog's name was the same as the dog I had when I was a child. The website owner posted a picture of their car. It was the same model of car I had been driving when I was in college. They talked about eating at a certain restaurant. It was the same restaurant that I had gone to all the time when I was working at my previous job. One day, when I looked at the message board, people had written messages to the owner saying happy birthday. That day it was my birthday as well. I decided to write on the message board for the first time, just out of curiosity. I was going to wish the owner happy birthday and tell them we had the same name. However, when I tried to write something, I realized that there was nowhere to type your message. It wasn't a message board at all, just a static page. That's odd, I thought to myself. In other words, whoever owned the website had gone to a lot of trouble to make it seem as if it was an interactive site, as if there were other people posting on it. When in actual fact, all the content must have been created by the owner. Why on earth would someone do that? I wondered. I decided to send an email to the owner. It read, "Hi there, believe it or not, we have the same name. Nice to meet you." It was just a friendly email. The next day, when I tried to look at the website, I discovered that the website was gone. It seemed like it had been deleted. Then I opened my mailbox. There was one reply. When I looked at it, a chill ran down my spine. It just read, "I found you." Top 10 things that never happened. Story 2, horrifying experience during quarantine. I was upstairs in my room one night playing video games with the volume really loud when I thought I had some noises coming from downstairs. I muted the TV and listened closer. Nothing. I resumed playing the game for another hour when I heard it again, only louder. I was sure I heard it this time and was a little freaked out. To assure myself, I went downstairs to the basement where I thought I heard the noise coming from. As soon as I opened the basement door, I was hit with a cold breeze. I went downstairs and saw the window wide open. I was 100% sure I had closed and locked all the windows in the house. I was ready to make a run for it when something stopped me. I turned around and for the first time noticed the closet door was slightly cracked open. I stood for what seemed like 30 minutes in front of the door, debating whether I should open it. I moved closer and put my hand on the doorknob. All of a sudden, I heard a creepy crackle coming from inside my closet. I have never run faster up a flight of stairs before. I locked the door and called the cops, who had an unusually fast response time. They came in and searched the house, and not even 5 minutes into the search, I had a gunshot from downstairs. A few minutes later, they came out with a deranged looking man, probably homeless. They put him in the back of the car and told me they had opened the door and the man was holding a gun, shot at them and missed. He luckily missed and the cops disarmed him and arrested him. The scary part was how close I was to opening that door and likely being murdered. To be fair, this just sounds unrealistic. And honestly, this is the only content I have now. Last story, I guess. I've always been surrounded by paranormal. But there are a few different occurrences that stand out in my mind, even as a child of 6 or 7. Shut up. I remember seeing things that weren't there, telling my mom about these imaginary friends that were very real to me. My parents were separated before I could remember. My dad, being a junkie, got visits every other weekend. We moved every other month or so I wasn't exactly afraid of new places. But there is but this one really gave me the creeps. My mom, however, has lived in the same house for a little over 12 years. At one point, my dad lived with our uncle, his 2 daughters, a few years younger than us. Me being around 11, my older sister there being his son, about the same age as my sister, maybe a year older. His wife, my dad, and my sister and I in California, on Wonders. California, on the side of some old forgotten road. On. He lived in a cold wooden house nestled a couple of yards into an apple orchard. No neighbors for a few miles either way. The house was very cold. My sister and I spent most of our days alone. As my cousins went to visit with their birth mother, my dad was never around, and my uncle and aunt worked the weekends. We were tasked with household chores, and for the most part, things were quiet while we worked. We bickered as we cleaned, but the air always felt kind of heavy, in an uncomfortable, suffocating kind of way. It was an unspoken rule that neither of us would leave the company of the other, not to go to the bathroom or even just to make a trip to another room to put something away. Our older cousin had joked about the place being haunted, telling tales of floating cigarette boxes and pounding on the doors. I never took him too seriously. Until one night I was asleep on the bed, on the bunk. I shared with my sister. Everyone was home that point, but fast asleep in their rooms. I remember vividly in my dream a pen floating in front of my face. Total darkness except what I can see in front of me. A plain, really silver pan. I remember watching in slow motion as the pen fell, turning over slowly through the air. I remember a sharp feeling of sudden panic as the pen neared the end of its fall. Before it had the chance to make contact, I shot up in bed. Sweat rolled down my back, sticking my hair to my face. It was dark except for a blue light illuminating the room from the hallway. Through the very slightly open doorway, a little rattled still. I peeked over the side of my bed to check if my sister was awake. That's when the initial unease turned into ice cold fear. The 6 foot, very bottom heavy, floor lamp beside my sister and I's bunk bed lay on the floor. The cool thing on the top shattered. My sister was still fast asleep. I scanned the room, still pretty unsettled, as I strained to stare into the darkest corner of my room. I noticed the little amount of light filtering in the door had slowly disappeared into almost nothing. My heart already jumping into my throat at this point. I looked at the door. Completely frozen with fear, I just stared. An enormous dark silhouette stood outside the cracked door, obviously meek, but completely devoid of features. only the outline of a brim hat and trench coat, completely unable to move. I'd say about 5 minutes passed of me shaking in my bed before I had the courage to yank my blanket over my head and lay there until the morning sun shone through the window. The same shadowy figure has claimed my mom's home, and still, 9 years later, I'm almost 19 now, I have experiences with it. My friends have had encounters, and all of my mom's side's family have seen the same thing. Me and my sister have always been more sensitive to the paranormal, which has drawn more attacks to us. It's become physical, leaving us with bruises and scratches. There's so many stories, I almost don't know which one to share. One On a side note, I've also visited two different psychics, and they both, curiously enough, told me basically the same thing. The first, that I was a beacon, whatever that means, and a strong one. That she felt me enter the room. The second told me I had a strong spiritual draw, and that my aura was bright, almost shiny. Also not sure what that means. If anyone is interested here, I'm happy to share his experiences. Anyways, that is all, I guess. I'll see you next time. And for any wording errors or whatever, just know, first of all, I'm new to this, I guess. And I'm also not a good talker. Hence why one of the reasons I don't talk much. Anyways, hope to see you soon, my friends. Until then, goodbye. And whatever.